Hello and welcome to a breaking news quick thoughts video.
Quick.
Yeah, quick is going to be really funny when you look at however long the video says this
Just
is.
look at the bottom there.
Yeah, just look over there and you'll know I'm a liar. My name is Darby Holland.
I'm Jeff Mayo.
Jeff,
Darby.
Activision Blizzard is now owned by Microsoft.
True.
That is a real thing that happened today.
Yes. Though not like I guess technically not owned yet, but yeah.
Well,
Intention to buy.
Intention to buy. They picked it out in the supermarket. They're ready. They're about to go through a year-long checkout process. This is the wrong metaphor. This is the wrong metaphor for this type of thing.
Yep.
They've ordered it on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be really backed up.
Yeah.
But it's on its way.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
This is definitely, I said this morning, and I think it's true. I said, I think this might be like the most influential gaming industry event thing to happen in our lifetime. Like, I mean, obviously lots of crazy things. It's up there. Like, this is a very, I see this being a very, very big deal.
Oh, yeah, especially as far as transactions and stuff go. I guess you can make an argument of particular games / consoles being made and stuff like original Xbox and the like.
For sure. But it's huge. I mean, and this is this makes you could probably go immediately back to our video that we did for Bethesda and how much we were freaking out about that. It just makes that look like so small and insignificant in comparison to this. This is the real like Microsoft showing what they're trying to do here.
Yeah, especially since the Activision Blizzard cost was roughly 10 times as much as Bethesda.
And I would argue this is not just Microsoft. I think Bethesda was like Microsoft showing, hey, we really want to compete this generation. We really want to be seen almost equal to Sony as far as like the studios that we own and like the value of our console and the value of our service in general. We want that perception and everything. I think that was like, this is the direction we're wanting to go, but like, it does make an impact, don't get me wrong, but it was more of a like just pointing the arrow. This is like immediately this is announced and shit's changing. Yeah. Like I don't know if them buying Bethesda changed Sony's many things Sony was doing, other things like that. To some degree, yes, but like whatever. This is just like the minute this hits the press, it's like the gaming industry I think is different, you know?
Yeah. I think a big part of it is Activision Blizzard is just a bigger publisher, has more studios obviously and stuff than Bethesda does. And a lot of Bethesda big stuff, you know, they might release one or two things a year roughly.
Right.
Where Activision is guaranteed that just because of Call of Duty.
Right, no. But I mean, Activision Blizzard kind of has Bethesda almost within it, where it has some of those big IPs that have like individual games here and there that like, you know, people really love, like Warcraft and all these other things, Diablo, all of that. It has that, but then it also has like games that transcend anything that we are talking about here. When you have Call of Duty, Candy Crush, World of Warcraft, those or whatever, but especially just Call of Duty. I mean, just owning Call of Duty is already like, that's infinitely bigger than any game Sony or Microsoft separately have ever had by like a mile. It's like not Minecraft. Even close. Oh yeah, they do on Minecraft, but aside from Minecraft, you're all right. Yeah. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. You gotta go through it. Yeah, like just to throw it out there. Okay, what does Microsoft now own? This is in all the IP they got from just I would say big names and stuff. Well, we got Call of Duty, Candy Crush, Crash Bandicoot. You mentioned Diablo, Geometry Wars, Guitar Hero thing, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, King's Quest, Overwatch, Pitfall. Prototype is one I forgot was Activision.
Oh, yeah.
That's one I like. That's a favorite of mine. Skylanders, which is connected to Spyro the Dragon. StarCraft, Tenchu, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, World of Warcraft. Just to name some.
Yeah, you have like some bigger, some smaller, but I mean, they're pretty much most of them are pretty huge.
Yeah.
huge deals.
It adds to, I guess, diversity in Microsoft's lineup. So definitely with Call of Duty and Overwatch there when they already own like Doom and Halo. Like, oh yeah, they are the big first-person shooter people.
Yeah.
They're all first-person shooters that are on their thing, but has some range there.
And very different styles. Yeah, very different styles going on here. So, I mean, what was your reaction when you first saw this?
What the fuck? It's the initial reaction going through like, okay, what do they own? Yeah, what does this mean? And yeah, I have some things on here that just encompasses a lot of the thoughts and just kind of discussions to have on this. I think the first thing we can go ahead and get out of the way is the like monopoly, whatever concerns that people have. I mean, this does put, gives a lot to Microsoft, but it's not a monopoly like people say. I think it was Daniel Ahmad posted, and this is for 2020, earnings for video game companies. And I think Microsoft was in the top 5, and then the other ones were like Nintendo, Sony, Tencent, of course. Tencent number 1, Sony was number 2. If you added Activision and Microsoft for that year, their total earnings were 3rd, and still below Sony.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that the monopoly talk from the get-go it's never right now going to be anywhere near enough to be legally considered a monopoly. They have to come in here and break.
Now, if they start looking like EA or Ubisoft, that we might get.
Yeah. But so I think it's never, even at its highest potential, I don't think it'll be monopoly concerns. But this is a like card in Microsoft's hand to catapult them to swap Sony's place, I think. Whatever. Like, and we'll get into the will they, won't they of some of these decisions, but they now have like. Kind of they have a very advantageous position in a business way.
And I want to throw this out there since we're on this talk. Me and you don't necessarily condone all this consolidation.
No,
and all that.
It's messy. There's pros and cons to
especially with this particular company.
But in general, just with any of these companies, I always have the same stance that I mean, I'm not saying to just hate them blindly either. But do not trust any of these, because right now I do think Phil Spencer seems like he has a very good head on his shoulders when running this company. They have a very good direction in here or whatever. And it seems like a good place to be right now. And everyone who has been acquired and everything, everyone in this kind of has echoes the same thing. But there's nothing inherently about Microsoft that's going to be great forever. I mean, it's all leadership decisions. If Phil Spencer leaves, someone else comes in that treats it a different way. It can all just come crashing down. Like, you have none of your control over it there. And the more a company has no competition, the less incentive they have to be liked, to really care about that kind of stuff. So that's all I say is just, I think you have to have some healthy skepticism over any of this. And when just competition is the best thing for a lot of these industries and everything, and for the consumer ultimately in the end. And I don't think we're there yet, but I mean, this is it's a titanic shift, at least in just how we're going to view these companies,
Yeah. Let's see where we go on from here. Just a couple other little tidbits. Activision will remain independent until deal closes. Apparently by June 2023 is where it's looking like it probably will be. Could be before then, but that seems to be what is expected to be the kind of deadline for that.
I'm sure there's a whole lot to work out.
Yep. Phil Spencer is now the CEO of Microsoft Gaming. I guess Microsoft Gaming is like a new branding thing for it, and before Phil Spencer was like VP of Gaming or whatever the thing was. Now he is a CEO. Right. So I think the main thing is he has more access and more trust to go into that war chest a little bit and make bigger money decisions.
Right. It's at least on the outside, it seems like I'd love to know all of everything, how this shift in Microsoft happened, but it definitely seemed like Phil Spencer was the spearhead of it. But like me and you were always saying, we said it for Bethesda, and now it's even more true. We were saying like Microsoft was the only company that always had the this was always within reach. They always could do this. People talked about so and so buy Activision and so buy EA, any of these other ones or whatever. The answer was always like no and laugh them out of the room. But like Microsoft was the only one that was like they theoretically could.
Or
it's like
Tencent.
It's like and Tencent. If you can convince the people at the top that gaming is worth it, that it's worth like really taking this much of a step towards gaming, then this is something that can actually happen.
Yeah.
And I just didn't see signs of that happening until Phil started rising like this, and I just didn't expect it to go this far, this fast. If it did.
I imagine Phil's able to show them like with the models with Game Pass and just kind of predictions, things for the future, like, hey, it's not the most profitable thing right now, but here are projections and all that and the where it's trending. And
right.
Like, you look at Netflix and how Disney Plus doing. It's like, we can be this for the video games. And, he can show we're the only ones doing this right now.
Right. Right. Yes. I mean, and that's the biggest thing is, in a lot of ways, this is like probably later than it should be because gaming has been like the most lucrative entertainment industry there is for a long time now, and easily the fastest growing one for a long time. And I think that it's kind of weird that people still kind of view it as something that's like this niche thing or whatever, when it's like not even close to being that anymore. So like I think something like this, he probably just had to show, look at how much damn money this is making, and there's an avenue here because it's making this much money, and we're the only one. Because in streaming, TV and everything has been taken over with like subscription services, all this other thing or whatever. They're really the only one that has any foothold in this. So he's like, we are positioned. We are in a very good position.
And I think it's all just with as far as them getting Activision. A lot of people talking about multiple things from this naturally, and we'll actually get to more of those. Discussion goes on, but another thing that Activision kind of has something in that I imagine Microsoft is interested in is mobile, with like Candy Crush and the King as general as a brand, and with Hearthstone and stuff. Microsoft doesn't really have that. They're looking at going into that a little more, just like with their cloud services or mobile. So I imagine part of it is like, okay, yeah, this could help us go into that avenue and bring a whole new thing like Halo mobile games and shit.
Yeah. I mean, it just immediately like you have fingers in so many more pies than you did the day before. It's like when you do this.
Yeah, remember the Call of Duty mobile game, right?
Yes, it's huge. Yeah,
it's huge. Use that thing like, okay, can we do this with Halo and Doom and or anything else?
For sure. I mean, even if it was literally just they have Call of Duty, it would be like, what the fuck? That's just such a big money maker.
Yeah, I have to imagine like, with 70 billion, it's got to be a little more than Call of Duty. That's a big
I'm just saying it would be crazy enough with just that, much less they now have at least the second biggest MMO on the planet. They have one of the biggest mobile games with Candy Crush. They have another one of the biggest mobile games with Call of Duty Mobile.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of
one of the biggest battle royale games.
One of the biggest battle royale games, and Overwatch is still huge, despite how they're trying to bubble it to the ground. They have lots of big seller things. Like, I mean, Overwatch, the first Overwatch sold like 50 million copies or some shit like that. I mean, like,
no, sorry, it was dead on arrival.
I mean, even Overwatch, I think, in comparison to some of these, is like the lesser one of some of these, and it's insanely huge. So it's like.
Now, Phil, you need to put your money where your fucking mouth is. You keep on talking about this rated E content, this family content that you seem to be lacking, you want to go into. You now have Banjo, Spyro, and Crash. Fucking do it, you coward.
You're not lacking in the IPs, man.
No.
You have to make a new one. Just a new IP. Just fucking.
You literally have to leave the most beloved non-Nintendo platforming mascots.
I would have to hope that that's part of their future. That's part of their goals. Like, I would have to like hire someone else. I'm sure someone would be like,
Resident Evil would be fine, but it's like, come on, that'd be such race opportunities. You had all three of those and just kind of let them sit.
Just like hoard these.
Because like this is the thing. I guess we can jump into it. Like the strategy going forward with Microsoft. Like it'll be interesting to see what happens with Activision studios and IPs going forward. Because as of right now, Microsoft and Activision, their strategies are like kind of complete opposites. Where Activision has a mindset, this needs to be like a $1 billion revenue stream, or we don't really care for it kind of thing for the most part. Well, Microsoft's like, well, we just obviously we want our games to sell well, but mainly the streaming service, and we have games all shape and sizes. We released Halo last year as well as Psychonauts 2, and it's so.
And they take we'll have the big games to help fund the smaller games too, and all these other things.
So I'm curious to like how those like strategies will kind of clash or whatever, like how that Microsoft's vision affects Activision Blizzard properties.
Yeah, and it almost seems it's going to be so weird going forward, because you already kind of feel it with Microsoft and Bethesda, where they are like, they semi-feel merged, but they also kind of still feel like this is Bethesda and this is Microsoft. And they, like when me and you were talking about this earlier, it was, I think it was the way we described it. It was like, it's outwardly they're presenting it like it's a partnership, like it's a Microsoft Bethesda partnership, when internally they own them. But that's definitely and that seems like that's the way that they're operating too. Is like, you keep doing what you're doing, we're just gonna support you now or whatever. I wonder if, like, in the future, is the concept of Microsoft still going to be kind of like, is it all going to feel like it's one big Microsoft, or is it going to feel like, okay, well, when we say Microsoft, we mean the Microsoft Game Studios game, like these other ones that they made here. We don't mean this, or at some point, is it going to kind of like that Microsoft vision is going to feel like it's just an all-encompassing thing? And I don't even know what that feels like, or what that necessarily shakes out with. It's strange because, like you said, Activision seems like they're in a very bad Activision Blizzard's in a very bad place, and they're maybe more than Bethesda, if you like, maybe needs more rethinking about some of these things to some extent. I don't know.
Yeah. I am curious. Yeah, as far as you were saying, if like feeling like it, like in some ways Activision and Blizzard felt separate, so I'm curious if that will just kind of carry over.
I think at some point it will, because at some point you own so many things.
Yeah.
That it's like, what even is Microsoft? It's like at this point Disney owns so many things, but when you're watching one Disney thing, when you're watching ESPN, you're not thinking about Disney. It's I almost feel like it's going to be something like that at some point.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be several years before you see like any change.
For sure. Well, because they can't even legally talk about and consider doing anything for the next year and a half until this thing is done. And then with the way Activision has their studio set up, any significant changes that we're talking about will take a couple years to even implement. Yeah. Unless they go, which, we're going to have this mindset potentially once the deal goes through that Microsoft could announce things way in advance. Like, let's say Toys for Bob is getting its own separate thing and making a Banjo game. We may have to expect that being announced years in advance because they just want to put that out there.
Yeah, and they've done that with the studios they've acquired. They've been like, we just really want to share what they're doing.
Because once they get them, any new project, like if they take all the teams off of Call of Duty, so Activision literally isn't the Call of Duty's company, then they'll all have to start from scratch.
Right. But at least, like, we were talking about the pros and cons of it. I do think on the Activision Blizzard side, and just like me enjoying what they put out as a company, I do feel like this is a positive right now. Because there are things like Toys for Bob that I don't see Microsoft being so money focused that they're like, you're making good games that people like, but it doesn't sell enough, so on to Call of Duty with you. I don't really see Microsoft doing that. If Toys for Bob wants to make something else, I feel like right now you get the vibe that they would be supported in that.
Like vicarious visions and stuff as well.
Right.
Which I think got pretty much dissolved. I can't remember at this point.
Yeah, I think it did, but
shame.
Right. You would hope that culture kind of changes some.
And I've mentioned to you, and I'm not like beholden to the thought that this could actually happen. Like, will they potentially down the road? I mean, if this happened, it would be years from now. Go away from the Call of Duty yearly model. Again, won't happen anytime soon because stuff's already in the pipeline, yada, yada, yada. And mainly, I think if it does happen, it would be one of the studios, let's say Sledgehammer or something, was like, yo, we're not quite ready yet. This could use a few more months in the oven. Microsoft like, okay.
Right.
It doesn't need to come out in November.
I could see, especially because I mean they're buying all these properties because this is a future move. This is like this is how Xbox is going to look for the next decades in the future or whatever. So it's like you said, it's going to be a slow thing for any of that to happen. And Activision Blizzard, for all its problems, made a shit ton of money. So there's a lot of things that I don't think are going to be interrupted. You know, like things like the Call of Duty yearly model is still working for them right now. You know, people like us might not talk about it as much because it's just getting relentless and like doesn't change enough, but it's still selling a ton. So there's certain things that I don't see Microsoft like wrestling up too much until they feel like they need to. But at the same time, they are a way more aggressive company when it comes to changing things like this, you know. And who knows? And Warzone was a good example of let's rethink Call of Duty in a different way, and it worked really well. So I don't know. I'll be very interested to see how that goes in the future. But yeah.
Well, Dari, let's talk about another one of these big hot topics related to this. Exclusivity. I felt like we finally are getting calmed down with Bethesda exclusivity talk, and then this comes just in time to just get that flame reignited.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
So, okay, I can't remember. Okay, I have a statement via Bloomberg sources related to this. From a Bloomberg source, Microsoft plans to keep making some Activision games for PlayStation consoles, but will also keep some content exclusive to Xbox, end quote. And if people don't remember, this is literally the same thing they said for Bethesda. And then everyone's like, oh, Bethesda Game Studio games are obviously going to stay on PlayStation. And then they didn't. So kind of with this, expect, the worst case scenario way to take this is stuff like Warzone and Overwatch 2, for examples, are going to stay on PlayStation because Warzone's a continuous service. They haven't taken any of those off yet. I don't think they are going to start doing that now. And Overwatch 2 is pretty much an extension of Overwatch 1. So I think those are going to stay, and at least some of the next few Call of Duties will probably stay because of contracts and all that shit, and when they're announced. But at some point, I do think we're going to a point where Call of Duties are probably going to end up being Xbox PC exclusive. And I will say this, I will not be nearly as surprised if they didn't do that. If they still continue Call of Duty on PlayStation, as I would have been for Bethesda games being on PlayStation. Because they did spend a lot of money on this, but I can recognize Call of Duty in comparison is a much bigger seller than all the Bethesda games as a franchise. So I guess if they're going to make it a section for it, I think it could be this, but I kind of don't see it.
I agree with you. I think there is a devil's advocate argument worth considering of the business prospect of, do you value getting the most possible revenue out of Call of Duty you can possibly get, which is what it is right now, number one of the year every single year immediately without question. Or do you value the leverage it puts you over your competitors if you completely just shut Sony out? Because that's obviously Sony's biggest game too. It's everyone's biggest game with Call of Duty. So the fact taking that completely out of the question is a way for, not to sound too dramatic, to kind of bleed Sony out a lot. I mean, that's definitely, it's like, which one of these do you value more as a business?
And I brought up to you when we were talking earlier as far as potential reasons why they would go. Well, for one thing, I just want to throw out there, they probably will see the loss in sales for Call of Duty overall, or they potentially see them as an investment for Game Pass, whatever future, because like we've been saying, this is not an immediate get the money back thing. This is a very long-term plan.
Yes.
At least that's what we think.
Yeah.
For the sale.
Yeah.
But we were talking about earlier, if they make it exclusive, a lot of people play Call of Duty and will probably move, like a non-insignificant amount of people will probably move from PlayStation to Xbox for that reason alone, or PC, which still means you don't have to probably cut the money with Sony as much.
Right.
But also, you also probably get like the Grand Theft Auto, FIFA, those type of people, because now it's like, well, I got all those yearly things on the PlayStation. I guess I'll just get them on Xbox. They're all there.
Yeah. If all you did was play those multi-platform, just kind of ongoing games like that, like the FIFAs, Maddens, Call of Duty, and stuff like that. Like, yeah. If one switches, not necessarily a reason for you to have two consoles.
Yeah.
If you're just a very casual gamer, and just like at some point, I mean, I do think it does suck for people who like own PlayStations and everything and don't own an Xbox or something like that if you're only a console gamer. But like, I think it behooves Microsoft, if you're gonna do that, to do it as soon as you can, to try to. You want, as people buy consoles and stuff in the future, you want Xbox to just become synonymous with like, that's just where you play Call of Duty, and it's like that's where you play games with your friends and you do it like. Because I do think you're right. It's unprecedented, but there is definitely something to be said that if that is the biggest domino on this entire board. If like if that, or biggest piece on this entire board, if that goes over there, there's gonna be other people. Like it's gonna be more than just your Call of Duty only players. It's gonna be. It just takes a very big pillar out of Sony's pool. I think we're gonna learn a lot about Sony through this too. I do think Sony is still gonna be a big gaming brand and everything, and they have big games that like exclusive games that people care a lot about. But I do think that if you just had that, then you're looking at like a big loss of revenue for Sony. If just everything else stayed the same, you didn't gain anything anywhere else, and you just lost the whole Call of Duty crowd, I think suddenly you're looking at a way more niche.
Yeah, I mean,
Sony.
This is may not the best time for me to say it because Nintendo is thriving, but we've seen how if you just rely completely on exclusive games, how bad it can get for a company. Obviously, you can have the highs, but I mean, honestly, if you look at Nintendo's history, they've had more lower selling consoles than they have high.
Oh, for sure. No.
So.
And they had to hit on the software ways part, and like kind of affordability and everything is the part of the biggest reason the Switch succeeds, and the IP, for sure, the IP. But it's a combo of that. But the game that Sony plays is too similar to the game that Microsoft plays to lose this much ground to them.
Yeah. And not to say, even if that did happen, like, good number of people remember Sony would get to the low points of Nintendo, but I can see it being a sizable hit for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to fully predict. I mean, like, we could be wrong. Hopefully, Sony, but I feel like Sony has to have.
Yeah, what we're talking about is if
plan.
Sony, it doesn't change at all. Which I guess then we can transfer to that. It's just Sony plus PlayStation's reaction.
I don't know. Like, I've stumped on this. I'm kind of. I don't want to be too hyperbolic because like it might get proven wrong. I don't think Sony's gonna like collapse or anything. Like there's gonna be people having that. I think Sony will still always be around, but like. I worry that you're about to have a big company that's used to a certain amount of revenue, and that revenue is about to go down a lot, and those companies usually do not react very well to that.
Yeah. I guess I got a couple different things, like potential ways they could do it. What do you think about them acquiring some studios, play Microsoft's game? I know the answer really is they can't compete.
They can't. The playing field is not even. It is not a fair playing field.
Like we said, to play some catch up. Like I don't know completely Sony's war chest and some of the value of these studios. Like let's say Sony was able to put everything it has into one publisher, studio, whatever. Like what is the biggest they could potentially grab? I'm not even saying I want people to continue acquiring things, but
they've never grabbed something fucking like this.
I know.
They grab individual studios. That no one has grabbed something like this.
I know, and I know it's Microsoft. Microsoft kind of did the same thing, even though it was higher volume, until they didn't.
Yeah.
until they did take that next step.
I mean, I think they probably should in some ways because, like, in some way, I do think Sony needs this. Sony's very good at making those like blockbuster, really good single player games and everything, and I think that's not something they should abandon. They're very good at it, and it works for them. They sell a lot, and that is something that separates them from Microsoft. I mean, like, coming through all this time, they have had a better lineup of exclusive games than Microsoft. Just end of story. Like, their games have been more quality. And I think they need to lean in. I think they should keep leaning into that, but that is not going to be enough on its own. But the answer, I don't think you can compete. You're trying to compete with one of the biggest companies on the planet. I don't know for sure the finances and stuff, but Microsoft could probably just straight up buy Sony, the company, money-wise. Like, Sony, the parent company. Yeah. I mean, it would be a big thing, but, like, they probably have the money to do that. It's just you're not dealing with at all the same thing. I don't think Sony could ever buy something like this big. And I don't know if trying to play that game is necessarily the best route here.
Yeah.
I think Sony just gets checkmated. I just think, like, you were just crossing your fingers that Microsoft never shifted its weight towards gaming, and now it is. It's terrifying. Am I being too dramatic about it?
No. I mean, here's the thing, and this one people don't know about. I saw it with Bethesda. Sony fanboys cheering for, okay, Sony, this is it. You buy Square and/or Capcom. It's like, Again, they were going to be cheering for people to buy these things, and would Sony be able to afford them? Made the argument for Capcom a couple years ago, but now Capcom's kind of in a very good spot.
What do you think the state of Sony is in
right now? Today?
Let's say 10 years. Because 5 years doesn't feel like enough things have changed yet, potentially. At least Sony's position in the video game industry, I guess, in comparison to Microsoft and Nintendo.
I kind of feel like they're at the bottom at that point, unless they make some changes, like in the kind of like Microsoft is now as far as like full revenue stream and stuff. Potentially, just because, again, that's unless they make some major changes. But Sony at this point is kind of rested on their laurels. At this point, it's kind of like the smell of their own farts, as we kind of been saying. So they have to make some changes. I don't know what the changes are or what they could do, because another thing, like I was going to throw out there, do they make a Game Pass equivalent? I know people's like, but they have PlayStation Now. There's no contest between those two services.
You're not playing God of War on the service. You're paying $60 or $70 for God of War.
And even when they do add it, like games like God of War, they take them off pretty shortly after.
Yeah, and
God of War might have been permanent at this point.
Well, and by that I meant you're not playing day one, is what I mean. You might be able to play the other old God of War, but I mean, like, Halo came out, you were playing Halo on Game Pass immediately.
You know that them buying this means Call of Duty's will be on there day one.
Right, it's huge.
Unless they go back on their word, which
that just sells all kinds of Game Pass subscriptions now. I mean, like. And I think it's kind of, I feel like it's too little too late to even try that now or whatever. Like, now, like, if you're Sony, you wish you were the more aggressive one that got all these users in on your subscription service. Because, I mean, it's so funny how these things change. Remember when that started? When that started, it was like Microsoft or the Xbox is super down. Like, Xbox One was a terrible generation in comparison to the PS4 for them or whatever, and Game Pass was scrappy Microsoft trying to, like, they're like hurting themselves to get people in to try to compete with Sony. And it was like, okay, this, it's like Xbox doesn't have the games necessarily that you would want from Sony, but, like, look, it's like such a great deal, you're getting these things. It was a scrappy move for the second place guy to do. Now that scrappy move, like, now suddenly this happens, they shoot up like this when it comes to games they have, and they have this user base that's just, like, growing and growing with this thing. It kind of leaves Sony sitting with nothing. Now you wish you were the ones that was like, it's like Sony was operating like this never would happen. Like, there's no chance that this ever would happen, when there always was a chance that this would happen. And I do not think they're well positioned now, because even if you start to do it, even if it's just as good of a service as Xbox Game Pass, we have seen how like other services have come and they might be better than Netflix or something. Everyone still has their Netflixes. You know, like whatever the one that people are entrenched with, a lot of times is what they use.
Well, yeah. Even if they get it's good at that, it might be able to compete. But yeah, Microsoft kind of has a foothold in it, and they now have the connections and just, I mean, a lot of big indie games. I mean, at this point, it feels like a lot of the quote-unquote bigger indie games are coming to Game Pass day one, if not kind of shortly after. Like, they announced today Death's Door is coming, and that hasn't been out too long.
Right.
And just all the other crazy things. And now announcing, all of Activision Blizzard stuff, along with Bethesda and all their other first-party stuff coming day one. Just no questions asked.
Yep.
And whatever other random shit they add on there. So Sony would have to add the first part, which would be a big thing. But now everyone's like, if Sony just does that, it's done. They just have that if they ever want to do it. Well, Microsoft now has Activision Blizzard, so now their first party thing is pretty dang close, if not exceeds it, depending on the taste of it.
But player base, we're talking about money and how this company succeeds wise.
Yeah,
that's a lot of people. You got like the most popular games out there, almost, a lot of them.
And then you gotta do these talk to these third parties and everything, and catch up that way too.
Right. I mean, to put it into this perspective, Sony has waited too long, because I guarantee you there are soccer moms out there that know what Xbox Game Pass is now. You lost. You gave Xbox several years to like slowly creep this branding up, and until like I think a lot of people just know, like, oh yeah, this is just I get this just like I get my Netflix or get anything else like that or whatever. It's like, you fucked up. You should have been there then. You weren't.
But it's funny, like, seeing the perspective of Game Pass kind of change over the last couple of years, because Game Pass in some ways, if I remember correctly, correct me if I feel like I'm remembering wrong. And Xbox showcases with kind of like PlayStation VR, like, here's the Game Pass section, just may not to the exact same level, but people are just kind of like, okay, who cares? And now everyone's like, Game Pass. Games are.
Well, I mean, that's because it was not an overnight thing for Xbox either. I mean, this was a slow thing. They had to build this whole thing up, and there was a lot of like, is this going to work for them? Is it, is this the right strategy? Because at first we were like, okay, you have this, but you don't have game studios at all. So it's like, why would I get your service? And then that it just got to the point where both you have like every third party from every type of video game, indie, AAA, all these other ones are coming to you. And now they have all these studios, so it's like they've solved all the like bonus problems that we had for them this whole time, and now it's like, yeah, I mean, but they worked to get Game Pass up to what it was, and I just even like I said, I think Sony could tomorrow come out with a service that like game wise completely rivals it, if not surpasses it somehow, and I still think they would have their work cut out for them.
And as far as like, I guess the service overall, like, I guess another thing I didn't have on the list I just thought of, potentially to get another revenue stream or get more people onto their brand, do they go farther into the PC market? Do they start getting the games out released closer or day one like Microsoft does?
God, I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I for me personally, I'm looking for any reason to not buy a PS5. Like, if they just said, like, even if they said these games came a year later to PC, I might just skip. I might just not get a PS5, because, like, it's the point, It's like, my PC is great at playing games.
Final Fantasy 7 Remake.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you'll at least steal mine.
Yeah, well, at least choose yours. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah, Sony has
We talked for
some
almost
stuff to figure out.
We did. We talked for 40 minutes. I think that was a lot. That was good for this quick thoughts. Do you have any?
Sorry, we didn't talk about a big thing.
What?
Bobby Kotick.
Yeah.
And workplace culture and that stuff.
We touched on some of the culture stuff, but we can hit Bobby Kotick before.
Okay, the important thing, obviously, people mind went to Bobby Kotick.
Mhm.
What's going to happen with him? Well, when it came up that Phil Spencer is now CEO of Microsoft Gaming, added on to once this goes through Activision Blizzard will report to him.
Right.
I don't know how, but people read that as Kotick staying.
Mm.
Like definitively. They technically haven't said it. And just remember, people, they can't say officially one way or the other what's happening with them. It is actually illegal.
Yeah.
So there's that, but Wall Street Journal has reported, and I believe Bloomberg's reported similarly. Bobby Kotick, Activision's longtime CEO, is expected to leave after the deal closes, according to people familiar with those plans. I'm not surprised. Just for a lot of reasons. I mean, he's going to get a buttload of money, but at this point in time, there was no way for him to go without him getting a buttload of money. It's just impossible.
Like if there wasn't legal things, if he wasn't going to get arrested, there's really not much you could do.
Yes. So a part of the reason, like, as far as this kind of being, like, you know, hot and cold as far as, like, this whole acquisition, it's probably overall good for the actual people working at Activision Blizzard. Because this is at least something that will hopefully improve their work culture and get Kotick and the other main problem creators out of the company. Right.
It could force a change of leadership here, and Microsoft right now is a way more open company, and just like there's gonna be a PR incentive even to, like, you acquired this company that is in a very, very, very controversial state. You need to make it clear that you are doing things to fix that, because like suddenly Activision Blizzard's fuck ups are your fuck ups, you know, that's on you now. So it's like, I do think this will help with the accountability of making that change.
And you know, something could come out, but at least as of right now, unless I'm forgetting something, there hasn't been any reported issues in Microsoft games.
Right.
So there's at least no big issues.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully.
So hopefully there's some improvements there. Also, I'll throw this out there as far as how maybe some employees feel. This is from Jason Schreier. So he posted this tweet. Some sentiments I've heard from Activision Blizzard employees today. Optimism about management changes and the positive culture of several Xbox and studios. Makes sense. Fury towards Microsoft giving Bobby Kotick a big payday and soft exit. And determination to keep organizing. So they're happy about potential work culture changes. They're upset Kotick is kind of getting off scot-free, but again, I mean, I get their anger, but again,
but I also don't really think Microsoft could do anything about it necessarily. I mean, you know, other people would know more than me, but I don't think the fury towards Microsoft necessarily completely makes sense when I think just the fact that he's going is a positive. And I don't think there was really any way to not give him that, you know. And they can't make him leave until the deal's closed anyway. So it's like he's gonna leave then. That's the earliest point that Microsoft could have any sway at all to get him to leave. You know, it's like it's not their company until then. I mean, I don't know why Bobby Kotick even wants to stick around this company that fucking hates his guts. Just take the money and leave now. You know, it's like no one wants you here.
I imagine there's something in the contract where it's like, well, he collects a paycheck for a year or whatever shit. Another year, and maybe there's something in that deal that means he just gets more money than if he left. Kind of thing.
Probably. That's probably all it does.
So, again, one company owning a good more chunk of the gaming industry, not great, but stuff revolving around the potential games and the culture of said company is probably going to be an improvement.
And probably just some shines of hope for these people, these Activision Blizzard workers who have had just the worst year of their lives probably, and hopefully this looks like there's a chance for some change. You know, nothing's guaranteed, and you're still going to a big old corporation that could get corrupt and get bad too, or whatever, and probably already is in some areas because it just happens. But hopefully this is because they were kind of just spiraling out of control with no end in sight, and hopefully this just is something different. There'll be some change, you know. I would hope.
But now they get to work alongside Tim Schafer.
And that's just already, their culture is already improved. Share a company with old Tim. Well, anything else, Jeffrey? I mean, we will be talking about this all year, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, this is not going to be something that is relegated to just this video. This is going to be a big topic.
Look forward to when I inevitably bring a main topic up of Microsoft Smash Bros. Roster.
And Kart Racer, they got it. They got to do both. You guys, you're ready. Everything's been building to this. Oh, Lord. Alrighty. Well, we will be doing a Goaty episode later this week that we'll probably post at the end of the week. So look forward to that. That will be a grand old time. And then hopefully after that, we'll start having a more regular schedule of normal ass podcasts. But this was basically a normal podcast. We got 45 minutes full of hot gaming news.
The biggest, some would say.
Some would say the biggest. So thank you so much for watching.
And look forward to next year when we talk about Microsoft buying Square Enix.
And buying us.
Yes.
You know, our bodies. We're owned by Phil.
Okay.
All right. Bye.